Two started. There we go. There it is. Welcome to the stream. We are already an hour into the European Open Cup. So these guys are already into the round of like 64. Yeah. Actually, these guys specifically are already in the round of 32. It is a fresh best of 3. In the bottom left, it is the red Protoss Geralt. In the top right, as the blue Protoss, we have Shadown. Because we get all the PvPs on this channel. Still haven't quite figured out the new schedule yet, but it's very likely that I'll be deciding on a whim. Okay, now this is funny. Deciding on a whim whether to cast the Korean Cup or the European Cup, but those two probably never going to be the NA Cup, to be honest. The EU Cup has been notoriously long, especially since they changed the semifinals to a best of 5, so I'm not going to commit to finishing out the bracket, which could easily be 7 hours. No. But I do like casting, and I do like a lot of these guys that get into the round of 64. To the round of 4. The finals are epic and awesome and all that. Like, I'll never say that they're not important, but it just takes a long, long time to get to. So, Shadown knows about Geralt's proxy, and Geralt knows about Shadown's proxy. Wait, what? How did that probe miss that? I mean, it would have seen the gateway, or the Stargate, rather, but I thought it saw the pylon. How did that happen? Okay, well, this has already started off really weird. This is not at all what I'm expecting. So, of course, when you scout the lack of pylon in the main base of your opponent, it's not really, it's not really a whole lot of information, because it could easily fake it. But Geralt is trying to scout, realizing, okay, I missed the pylon wherever it is, but he had already got so close to scouting this one that I don't think he rescouts that. This is so awkward. This is so unbelievably awkward. Wow. Starting things off really, really hot. That is weird. Huh. Well, the proxy Stargate could be doing a lot of damage. We do not have a shield battery quite ready to go. Geralt is going for his own Stargates, but obviously that's not a Phoenix popping out right now, and Shadown's Oracle is going to do more damage, because Shadown is actually getting a shield battery. It's actually 2 shield batteries. I guess his information until now was also very incomplete, but he sees that it's an Oracle, doesn't have to really get those 2 shield batteries in the front lines, and the Oracle of him already getting 11, 12, going and sacrificing itself. Probably should have gotten the 13th, but anyways, already getting 12 probe cools. That actually is going to put Geralt into a position where he has all in. Simple as that. One base to one base, well, with both of them getting a Nexus, sure, but Geralt has no other advantages other than the hope that his own Oracle suddenly starts doing a lot of damage. Now, his Oracle is finally going to find Shadown's Oracle, and is actually going to try and depower that, but I don't think it's going to work. No, it's not going to work. Shadown doesn't even have to chrono that second Oracle. And now with 2 Oracles, we know that that means you can save... Oh, actually, his first Oracle died. Okay, well. So he can't surpass the shield battery, but even getting Adepts in here. Luckily that Phoenix popped out at the right time, because definitely 4 or 5 probes could have gone out instead of 3. Still, 3 probes go down and constantly threatening Geralt. Geralt cannot be losing any more probes. He's soon to be at half the worker count of his opponent. Not that being down 10 workers from your opponent isn't already unrecoverable in a mirror matchup, but, in this mirror matchup anyways. But, being half, that's even worse. Shadown follows up with a Blink build. And should be feeling very comfortable about ending this game, as long as he doesn't get surprised all in. But honestly, by the time Geralt can really set up an all-in off of 2 bases, he'd already committed to the Nexus, it'll be way too late. Adepts of Geralt do get into the main base, which is the good news, but they die very quickly thanks to that Pulsar Beam. And Stalker's being in relatively good position, so only 3 probes go down, not what he was looking for. Geralt has an Oracle that can hope to deal maybe a couple more probes of the damage every so often, but we are talking about gigantic leaps in economy for Shadown. Just gigantic. 4 probes is not bad, plus a big pull on that, but if the Oracle dies for it, then taking away any chance for further damage. Okay, so just the 5 and then no more worker damage to be had. It's still so much later. Like, he might have caught up and is only down 10 workers once again instead of the 14, but that is still not very convincing. Adepts are going to get into the main base. Shadown is once again have to activate the Pulsar Beam, which he does easily. And it does take it out before too much more probe damage is done, but I'm still looking at this economy graph, and I'm just like, this is a long time to have the advantage. That's directly into the blink is where we see that economic advantage go into. Geralt did go into a couple of immortals, so I guess it's not the worst case scenario here for Geralt. He's going to have protection against the stalkers, but look how many stalkers are available. 11 to just 5 units in total here. A couple sentries trying to be warped in to help out, but those are blink stalkers, and they are about to, well, not about to, but they are going to eventually get +1. So another advantage here for Shadown. And he's actually just going to blink on top of this. If the Immortal had been pulled back on top of Force Field Sentries, which I think is what Geralt wanted to do, then maybe he could have saved it for a little while longer. But he didn't react that fast, and he still probably would have died. GG, just not enough units. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, NerkNet, for the 8-month resub. Another month as a happy grubby. Oh, that's trademarked. You can't say grubby. The grubby police will come and steal our channel. Very unfortunate stuff there for Geralt. You know, he got so close to scouting that pylon, and seeing the probe still next to the pylon would have told him, like, hey, you're going to build something with that. And then he could have easily gotten a Phoenix instead of an Oracle and been in a much, much better position. But that's the roll of the dice, I guess. The scout did not quite see what it needed to. And 8 probes in the first 3-4 minutes of the game. That's way too much damage. PvP, am I right, guys? Am I right? Game 2 already getting started here. In the top left on a simulacrum. Simulacrum. Apparently you can pronounce it both ways, A or A. Anyways, that is the red Protoss Geralt. And in the bottom right, up 1, he is the French blue Protoss Shadown. France having a lot of good players in Starcraft too. I would say usually these guys are well matched enough in PvP, but PvP is definitely just a matchup where even if you're pretty well matched, a 3-0 or 4-0 can come by just because there is a little bit of that luck. Even if you literally send out 2 probes to scout for the proxy pylon, there is a chance that you just do not scout it. Or you don't scout it in time to do anything about it type thing. So, I don't ever want to like really call a PvP, but there are ways to try and mitigate the randomness factor, which does include a lot of scouting. But a very frustrating thing about this matchup is that there's really no just you do X and you are safe against most things. Not really. It also makes it a fun matchup, though, because even if you do the standard build, which would be kind of like a Stalker Sentry into 2 Sentries, maybe 2 Stalkers, depending on the situation, Nexus, Robo, if you do that, I mean, you might be in a good position, but whatever they do has a chance to, like, you know, even up the worker count, even up the Nexus timings. So it can be a fun matchup. But as far as balancing out the rewards of the aggression versus the safe play and all that, it's not nearly as good as DBT.
Apparently you are doing something right, Captain.
DBT is frustrating. That's just the way it is. Geralt's actually going to use his proxy pylon this time to build a Stargate, so getting some revenge from last game. Shadown is going to look for this pylon, but will he actually find it? Kind of a nice little spot here on the high ground, tucked behind the mineral patches. Thank you, Darth Zach666 for the 13-month resub. How are you doing? I am tired and feeling quite overworked. But luckily my work is casting Starcraft, so I'm not really complaining that much. Yeah, casting for like 9 to 10 hours on the weekends. It's a lot. It's a lot. Especially since yesterday was a bit weird. They had a new way of streaming TSL, but I won't get into it too much. But anyhow. So the proxy oracle has not been scouted. Ooh, Shadown got so close to it as well. Oh, darn. That's going to be tough. Now, if he puts his stalkers in the correct position, and actually Shadown going for a 1-base Twilight Council was certainly planning something spicy. If he puts his stalkers in the right position, then it's not such a big deal, but the stalkers of Geralt are trying to make sure that doesn't happen. He also just goes ahead and lets a shield battery finish. So that wasn't really a reactive shield battery. That was like, I am not going to bother looking back at my base kind of shield battery timing. I'm not sure he actually wanted it to finish, given the chance, given the opportunity, but it was just very coincidentally timed with the actual depth shade towards the last few seconds. The Stalkers were almost well in position, but kind of missed the opportunity to get the initial shots off on the Oracle, so the Oracle gets 5... Oh! Okay, well, gets 5 pro kills and actually dies. I thought that thing was actually going to survive with pulling back like it did, but nope. I mean, it would have survived with, like, 1 hit point and still would have been very targetable later on in the game, but 5 probes, not exactly what you wanted for being a complete surprise. I mean, we have a game we can directly compare it to. Last game, Shadown got almost twice that, so... not the best. Yeah. I say almost twice that. He definitely got twice that. It was at the sacrifice of the Oracle, but when you get 12 pro kills, or you get 12, like, it's totally worth it. Sacrifice of the Oracle of 5, not nearly as good, especially because, since his pylon was never found, he could have very easily had 2 Oracles teaming up together, going for drive-by harassment and not having to sacrifice one, and then maybe even a second one. It literally just drives by a bunch of Stalkers that were all well-placed around. That many Stalkers doesn't usually happen, to Geralt's credits. Maybe there's 4, maybe even 6, I suppose. But often, especially if they're trying to expand, they would be doing other things. Well, he did see the Twilight Council with the first Oracle, so he knew an expansion wouldn't be that quick. And seeing that fast of a Twilight Council maybe is a little bit scary for Dark Shrine, but otherwise, yeah, the blink would be more expected. I guess maybe he was thinking there'd be a lot of Stalkers, but not as well positioned as they were. Oracle Opener not doing the best, as this one comes out very weak from the whole ordeal. And now Blink is done. So this Oracle should die instantly. I'm a little surprised that Shadown went for that 1-base Twilight Council. I mean, maybe it was going to be something a little bit sneakier if it wasn't an Oracle that flew in and scouted everything. Typically, we don't see 1-base Twilight Council as a 1-base opener, basically, right? Like, there's 1-base Robos that can feel a little safe, or even just add a 3rd gateway. There's obviously 1-base 3 gates. There's 1-base Dark Shrine. That's the reason to get a Twilight Council. But the 1-base Blink is, actually haven't seen that yet. But he certainly does get an edge on the Blink upgrade. He's not really going to be able to use it. Geralt's also going into Blink pretty quickly, finishing up in just a couple of seconds. When all is said and done, the proxy Stargate didn't do a lot of damage, but it also wasn't such a committal that it ruins Geralt's plan, right? Because Shadown also went for a 1-base build a bit longer. Not a Stargate, but a Twilight Council, but still he also delayed his Nexus. So those are 2 Nexus that finished around the same time, with Geralt allowed to produce probes confidently and consistently while doing just the bare minimum damage really you would hope an Oracle does on the offensive. So 4 workers down is definitely not bad. I think that is something that you can try and make up for as time goes on. And then Shadown not really using his Blink advantage also is a nice thing for Geralt, who, by the way, is going to be going into Disruptor's robotic space on the way. Shadown opening with that Blink so quickly, not using it, immediately following up with Charge, getting an upgrade, looking towards the later stages of the game, sure, but is limited to those gateway units. Now, Geralt, I mean, if Shadown hits +1 with all these gateways, he's actually going to have probably an overwhelming amount of units for Geralt's robo units to actually handle. Let's say it's a Disruptor, it doesn't get a great shot, okay, you're probably overwhelmed. If it's a Colossus, you better have a choke and some walls to hide behind, right? So I still give Shadown a good shot here with this timing he is setting up for, but Geralt would be getting superior technology the more robo units he could pump out, right? Aw, thanks, Gimblebee. It's much appreciated. There's so many things that the audience doesn't see going on behind the scenes, so it's always like, when the casters don't feel super confident, sometimes it's like, actually, it didn't feel that different for the audience, and sometimes we just sit there worrying, like, oh my god, what if they notice that we actually couldn't, you know, do X or Y. In this case, we couldn't check some of our questions, you know, like when I miscounted the adepts, it's because I wasn't in game to just be like, oh, he had this many adepts, and I feel like I sound like more of an idiot. Anyways. I really thought Shadown was going to go for a +1 timing, and I think he might actually regret not going for that. When I saw the third Nexus slap down, I thought, okay, fine, but don't, you know, he's not going to produce probes for it, which I guess he still really isn't. But I thought this would be sharper. I thought this would be faster. This is all important because I was just talking about how the more robo units Geralt gets, and he's about to be up to 3, well, 2 actually, but maybe gets to 3, the more dangerous it gets for Shadown to rely on, you know, a big concave and just the mass amount of units he can get. So he goes for an attack when there's still only one disruptor and then kind of pulls back for a second, maybe just overreacting to the Oracle. Seems to be the case. Warpins did take care of that. Although they get 5 probes, which is pretty nice. Geralt has his own third Nexus, so clearly Shadown wants to do something. I mean, he wants to take advantage of the size, like the actual just number of his units, but I'm not sure he's actually going to get it. And this +2 upgrade that would usually be a super big advantage, I mean, that'd be an entire upgrade ahead of Geralt, doesn't really matter as much because we're talking about disruptors. They don't benefit from upgrades. Geralt definitely has a shot to hold here, but he's going to hope that the choke works out in his favor. He's got a couple shield batteries on the way as well, trying to get his defender's advantage to kick in as much as possible. Some good force fields catching a couple of those stalkers that misblinked, but here come the disruptor shots. One popping off on the Immortal, but none really being amazing. It might just be enough stalkers involved with the disruptors, with the awkward split here from Shadown. A couple of his units were also focusing down the economy. Oh, actually, no, this is what's happening. Oh, Jesus. Okay, so some of the probes did go down here for sure, which made the army a little bit easier to chew. Oh, some good disruptor shots right there. But this is where the real probe damage was being done in the main base and then in the natural. This is a fresh Zealot Warpin, so maybe they didn't do a whole lot of damage. Well, it doesn't actually matter. They recall that, which is a good choice. These Zealots are going on the entire time, killing 20 probes and depowering some critical structures. Lots of lost mining time as well, and he's even struggling to actually snipe the Warp Prism. He is trying to, though, while also defending this third base. Fortunately, Shadown also had to micro in 2 different places at once and did eventually take those really bad shots over here. So it's not the worst case scenario for our red Protoss, but 21 probes going down. Excellent maneuvering from Shadown. I totally missed the Warp Prism, to be honest. But that was a really nice setup, because certainly the whole idea is that I have a lot more unit potential than you do. Like, I just can spread my units around, but if you were to go into a choke and just hope that this would work out against the disruptors, well, that's exactly what Geralt was hoping you would do. So instead, you just get a Warp Prism in the main base. And the disruptors are going to have a really tough time being split against that. Geralt trying to produce probes ASAP actually missed Chronos. Didn't really have enough income to both afford probes and the disruptors he's also trying to get. So that looks very, very awkward. Couple disruptor shots almost catching Shadown off guard, but not quite. We do still have a classic Blink battle to talk about as well, but if we talk about that, we do have to talk about the upgrades. The Stalkers here might be in slightly higher numbers, 15 to 13. They are missing that +2, so no. Geralt's still definitely hoping for the disruptor shots. More looking to distract his opponent than truly get any victories on the Blink Stalker micro. Zealots once again into the main base. Disruptor unsuccessfully taking care of just one. Some Zealots cleaning up the rest, however, not nearly as much damage is done in the follow-up attack. Geralt, I think with his, he had a bit of a probe lead when the Oracle came in, and then he lost so many. That does suck. Actually, is already, I mean, it can't really get any further behind. There we go, in economy. That's the best way to put it. Because Shadown is actually fully saturated. So we will see Geralt eventually catch up in those probes, eventually even have to transfer his probes and still be well saturated, right? But Eventually, Shadown should really be producing off of this stronger economy much better. I mean, you'll see that increase of his own disruptors. I mean, this is a huge spike, and he's going to have this for, well, forever, actually. If his 4th Nexus is not canceled at any given time. Geralt was trying to be sneaky, but instead just loses 2 disruptors. But yeah, if this isn't canceled, then he'll have room to produce 65, 70 probes, pushing Geralt even farther behind. Oh! Okay. Alright. That was a nice snipe there from Geralt, trying to outposition his opponent. Now working on his +2, but Shadown's already almost done on his +3. These Stalkers a full upgrade behind for more than a minute. That's, I mean, a full 2 upgrades behind, I should say, for a full minute. That's pretty bad. But Disruptors do not care about those upgrades, and we are looking for 1 or 2 amazing Disruptor shots from Geralt. He finds a good one here, and then goes ahead and gets that Archon as well. Geralt's gonna have to really showcase his multitasking, basically, trying to control the map, apply pressure, even though he's not really in the position to apply pressure. It's not that Shadown is risking his army supply necessarily for this economy advantage. He also had a decent army supply, but just that Geralt was the one that was pressuring him. He had all of his units on the offensive. Shadown is trying to move out into the map. He's trying to push out, but this choke keeps working against him. Good split here. He sees the 4 disruptors, and 4 disruptors, by the way. Oh, they wanted the disruptor so bad. They wanted it so bad, but the snipe was too quick, and these disruptors are going to fall. Having all 4 there was probably not the best idea. Oh, he finally finds the proxy target that started it all off as well. I mean, that's always a nice snipe, I suppose. Geralt, unfortunately, not maneuvering his Stalkers. Maybe could have tried doing some damage on the 3rd Nexus. That is a big maybe, though, with a lot of units already prepared. Doesn't even reposition. He could try and go for a Disruptor shot, but he needs to make sure he has a blink out. He can never blink in. He's continuing to buy time. Shadown has his 4th base down and saturating it. Geralt's trying to work on his, but he has lost that map control because he lost so many of his disruptors. I know we had a Dark Shrine for one of the players here, of course for both players, PvP, but no harassment quite yet. Disruptors going to not quite catch Shadown off guard. Pops the Immortal, though, a little bit. This one is very snipeable if Geralt were to know about it, but he's going to have to run away. First and foremost, +2 does finish up, so we're a little bit closer on the upgrades. Shadown still has the economic lead and is even reaching towards a 5th. That's going to give him a lot of room for error. But we're talking about if all these disruptors die, Geralt has definitely evened the playing field. Still no scouting to the top right, or maybe he had it and lost it, I don't know, but he never replaced it. And that is a large Zealot warp in. A couple of Zealots are ready for Geralt, and a cannon with a shield battery is very nice to have against what is also a couple of DTs, but he needs, I think, a few more warp ins. He's trying to be very cautious. He knows this is often tagged with an actual attack from the army, so he's trying to find that. He has disruptors in proper positions, but he's not using them very quickly. The disruptors are going down too fast, and he hasn't actually sent all 4 of their shots out. So the Stalkers somehow live, despite how many disruptors were there. Disruptor shots now being thrown out from Shadown, and Geralt is down to his 3 disruptors, now 2 disruptors. Okay, 3rd one, 4th one does back this up, but his main base is still being ravaged. He actually warped in a bunch of DTs to take care of this, which is a very strong response, but that warp prism is not actually getting shooed away, and that is just still very, very dangerous. I can't believe, I don't know what happened there, but 4 disruptors, if they all shot, there's no way the Stalkers of Shadown would have come out of that like they did. So I don't know if Geralt just didn't have them hotkeyed, or I missed a couple of preemptive shots earlier, you know, just kind of like, maybe you're there, I'll shoot these out just in case, but that was maybe a missed opportunity. Of course, losing the disruptors for even a decent number of Stalkers is always a questionable trade, because we're talking about so much reliance on their comeback potential, more so than Shadown relies on his Stalkers, right? Because he can remake those. But, So far, starting to tackle the harassment, but this War Prism being alive is a real pain in the butt. Geralt's finally adding on his own charge, which, you know, he didn't really need for a long period of time here, and can be tricky to use with these armies as well, but it's a nice thing to have, especially when it comes to harassment. +3 also on the way. Not that Stalker battles have really determined any of these engagements, but they sometimes can. Observers being thrown out here with Shadown's little harassments. He does see a pack of DTs But he is, I think, a lot more focused on the attack. Disruptor's taking the high ground against Geralt. This is going to get really awkward. Is he actually going to try and push up here? I don't think you can. Unless Shadown throws out all of his disruptors at once. Ooh! 2 or 3 disruptors going down for 1. That is a very nice pickoff. These disruptors are being targeted by the stalkers to the right side, but so far safe from the disruptors of Shadown. I spoke too soon. All right, both of them still alive, but now they're going down to just the shots. These disruptors over here, it's actually getting a little difficult to tell whose disruptors are whose, but the army of actually Geralt is starting to slice and dice Shadown's stalker count. The zealots, I think, were going mostly unaccounted for because so much of our emphasis, like I was casting it, and I think they were focusing on it, so much of the emphasis was on the disruptors either living or dying, that the actual other part of the PvP army, the charge lot stalker part, actually kind of went out for Geralt there. Now, he did lose the 4th Nexus, and that is a very big deal. You would rather have lost the 3rd base than the 4th, which is still very, very fresh, but it is what it is, and he's going to try and immediately counterattack. He does manage to still have a decent disruptor count, and he did take down so many of Shadown's once they were left unprotected. You know, those 2 went down pretty easily. So can this be Geralt's moment? He needs to take this. He needs to at least get rid of the 5th base, but he also really wants to get rid of the 4th of his opponent as well, as he will struggle to replace his. That's a big concave coming through here. Disruptors are, some of them are off of cooldown, or maybe all of them aren't. Oh my god, the splits to save at least a few of them, but they're still not firing their own shots, and Shadown with 1 disruptor takes out Geralt's army that had 5. But all of the shots were on that cooldown, and Geralt couldn't do anything about being surrounded. Shadown, with some nice play on his gigantic army, he just replaced the numbers here so much quicker than his opponents, and the disruptors were unable to make up for that. Shadown is pretty close to the 1A territory. Just go ahead and attack in here. He's pretty close to it, but he doesn't want to throw this game away. He managed to save his 5th base. He still has that higher probe count. He might have lost his upgrade lead, but he could just continue adding in any unit he wants, and Geralt knows the end is nigh and taps out. Still a fun PvP, though. Disruptors are very fun. I know sometimes they can be really bullshit, and maybe as people get better and better at Starcraft throughout the years, maybe in 5 years, disruptors will be OP. But for now, they're high skill, high risk, high reward, and they're a lot of fun to watch.